Hey everyone, Mike here from Patient Boost. Today I am joined by the lovely Robiha Nazir and Claire Frisby, and together they form the amazing PracticeSuccess team. And I'm really excited today because it's got a great topic for you. It's all about how to handle patient phone calls, because that is can be quite a big bottleneck in a practice. And if you phone up a practice, different practices, it can be amazing how differently they answer their phones and certain things you pick up and stuff. So I'm just going to dive straight in, and I'm going to first of all quickly talk to Robiha. So Robiha, welcome. Great to have you on the technically podcast and video. So this is great. Tell us a bit about yourself. So I'll ask Claire in a sec about the what PracticeSuccess is, but I'd love to know from both of your sort of perspectives, like what's your background, what are you great at, everything really. But I'll let you tell everyone.
So I'm a dental hygienist. I started as a dental nurse back in the 90s. I am currently not practicing so much in dentistry as I've dedicated myself to the vaccine program. So I am a supervisor and a vaccine trainer on site at present. I'm also a mental health first aider, a counsellor. I have lots of bows.
Excellent, that's brilliant, perfect. Yeah, you're both very busy. And Claire, same question to you. What's your background and some other things that you're involved in?
So, like Robiha, I've been in dentistry since the early 90s as well. I got into implants really from the early, mid 90s it was, when they were first really sort of doing all the implants. But I went on from then to be practice manager, lead nurse, treatment coordinator. I used to have my own patients on a list when I left, but I came out of surgery last September 2019. 2020. I'll get my years muddled up. So I started working remotely online, and I might as well go on to PracticeSuccess. Me and Robiha met earlier this year. And we feel that we've got so much knowledge and skills that we've learned over these 30-something years that we can give some back to the practices, the team, and basically the dental community. So we've been helping out a lot of businesses and companies with mentoring, coaching, course developing. We're now helping with you and the patient journey. And really, we're open to different things where we can give back to all the dental nurses, the practice managers, anywhere we can help, really.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm just lost you in a window. Sorry, my WhatsApp went off and I was like, I need to delete that. That's brilliant. No, thank you for sharing that. So it's obviously we've been talking about this quite a lot, haven't we, the three of us? And it's not like you don't just do one thing. Like you've got, like you say, you've got such a broad range of experiences that you really can help with all sorts of little bits and big bits and big projects and trainings and everything. So I'm very excited to see what the two of you do together. And like I said, you've both got things like on top of that as well. So you're very prominent people in the dental community. And obviously, it's obviously great to have you on the Patient Boost team as well, which is awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so let's move on from there. So we're talking today about that typically that first call. So obviously, it's important that calls are handled in probably the same way every time. But the way a call is handled, especially when it's a new potential patient, that's when it's really important, because that's when it has an impact on, like, if you actually attract them to your practice or retain them and so on. So Robiha, so what is best way to put it is, why is the dental receptionist or the front of house team so important within the sort of overall patient journey?
Well, they're the first point of contact for anyone new coming into the practice, but also for your existing patients. It's really important that they're welcoming individuals or group of employees, and that they make people feel at ease, that they treat them like they would treat their own relative or would expect to be treated themselves.
Perfect. And what are a few things that they should consider, or a receptionist should consider, just prior to answering, picking up that phone and answering it? What are a few sort of recommendations from your side, or what you picked up over the years?
I'd recommend that they start afresh with every call, is perhaps taking that deep breath before they go into their role. And that's what they've got to think of it as, is role playing almost, you know, even though you might have 100 things going on behind you, at that very moment, the caller is the most important person. And so you've got to be mindful, a little bit of, I guess, blocking out everything else that's going on to just really hone in on that one person.
And like you say, that'll be quite difficult, because like you say, a lot of receptionists have got a lot of other tasks and responsibilities. And it's very hard, especially if you've got a patient standing right in front of you as well, to sort of manage that. Something you mentioned before is all around smiling. Can you let me in on that secret?
So when you're answering a call, I always believe that answering that call with a smile really helps to change the communication between the caller and yourself, because a smile, although it's really nice to see people smiling, can also be heard. And that's really important to remember to do that. So perhaps little reminders to yourself. If you're not naturally a smiler, then you put up reminders to smile before you pick up that call, to get yourself into that role.
Yeah.
Going on from that, actually, as well, is you've got to remember that most reception are in front of other patients. So they also are looking and watching what you're doing, because you're on display as well. So they can see. Some people, you know, you might get a frustrated patient, or they've got patients watching as well. So you have to be aware of everything that's going on.
Yeah,
and
that's
just
a really
putting
good
that
point.
smile on.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, because and I guess you alluded to it, Robiha, like it's a role play. Like you are performing a little bit, which I don't want to make people uncomfortable. But yeah, you're right. I hadn't even thought about the people in the waiting room that are gonna, they're gonna, even though they're already in the practice and they're probably already a patient, that
They're watching.
They're watching, and it could, if they're umming and ahhing about whether to move to another practice, or if a friend recommends another practice, then maybe seeing the receptionist handling Paul in a certain way might put them off. So yeah, I think that's a very good point. So Claire, again, back to you. Obviously, there's no necessarily a strict way to answer these phone calls, but what's a really good way to answer the phone? What's a good greeting? What sort of things should a receptionist be saying?
So ideally, they will say good morning or good afternoon. They introduce the practice, introduce themselves, and then say, how may I help you?
Perfect.
It's just something that you'll say over and over, get used to saying, and then it'll be second nature. And then you've explained who you are, you've welcomed the patient, you've explained who the practice is, and then you're back over to them. How can we help you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. It's one of those things that sometimes if you phone up a company, any company, and they don't sort of initially recite the company name, you can be a bit like, have I phoned the right place? And you don't want to start on that footing, correct. So it's so easy just to say the practice name, isn't it? Just quickly, it's advanced dental care or what have you. That's really good. Are there any situations where that would be different, or should it be the same every time?
I think it should be the same every time.
Yeah,
I can't think of anything that would be in a different situation. And to say it clearly, slowly as well, because, and going on to something else, don't pick the phone up straight away because you're not expecting it. And just be clear and make sure, like Robiha's already said, to take that breath. So you're not picking the phone up, and people can't always hear or understand what you're saying.
How many, talking about that, how long should you wait before picking up the phone? if that's something that quite a key part.
Well, I was always told years ago when I first started helping out on reception and the front desk, to allow 3 rings. So even if you're sitting there, just 1, 2, 3, and then pick the phone up.
Perfect. How many rings should you not let it go past? So what's the maximum you should try to be aiming for?
Well, I've been doing a bit of secret shopper calling lately, and it was just ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing, and then I think, well, there was no message, so there was no automated message, there was no answer phone, nothing telling me. I didn't even realise whether I had the right number I was ringing. So I put the phone down. I tried a different practice. So, if you leave it too long, I mean, I think you're talking, I would say 3 to 6 rings, and you need to pick that phone up at the most.
Yeah.
But a lot of practices I've found have got the automated, so it clicks straight in and says your calls will be recorded. And then it just plays music, but that can go on for a long time as well. So there's something, how long do you wait as a patient? Some people are in a hurry. You might be ringing on your lunch break.
Yeah.
If you leave a message, then obviously reception or front desk have got to respond to that message. Goes on from there, really.
So ideally, if you haven't got an answering machine, hopefully between sort of 3 to 6 rings would be like the ideal window. But like you said, I do find some of the practice I've found that have got like an automated answering machine, I do find that quite comforting, that you've got through to the right place, but you're not necessarily speaking to someone like immediately. Like it does give you a bit of a, because I don't know if this is me showing my age, but I'm not really comfortable on the phone. I'm way more used to texting and emailing and stuff. But I think that applies to anyone. So I don't like making phone calls. So phoning someone, even if it's me phoning a business to give them business, is still can be quite a daunting experience. So I do quite like knowing that I've phoned the right place, and then once I know I'm in the right area, then I can just sort of settle into it, which is a bit of a weird insight from my side, but that's just and there's probably a few people out there that are like that.
I think it's going that way, isn't it?
Which is it's a separate topic, but giving your patients other ways to contact you, and interact with you is a plus. But as we're focusing on the phone call today, regardless of how people interact with your practice initially, at some point you're going to have to get on a phone call with them, or they're going to have to phone you. So still really important that you have this down. So thank you for that input, Claire. So Robiha, next we've handled the greeting, and hopefully we've put the caller at ease, give them a great first impression. Being put on hold can be one of the most annoying things ever, especially if it's the first thing you do. But if there is a situation where you have to put someone on hold, what is the correct or probably preferred way of doing it? Like what's a better way of putting someone on hold than just saying, please hold, or not even telling them what you're doing?
So personally, everybody does this so differently. So for me, it's really important that you let me know that you're going to put me on hold, and also let me know how long it may be until someone else or yourself comes back to me. If you are going to transfer the call, then you're letting me know who I'm going to be speaking to next. You may want to take down the name of the person and let them know that if the call gets cut off, then they will call you back. Of course, not everybody knows if the call's been cut off or if it's being transferred. And so this person will need to be mindful of that if they've not been called back after X number of minutes, that they have to make the effort to call that practice back themselves. And that's what I would say would be a really good way of letting someone know that you're going to put them on hold. Is communicate it to them.
Yeah, I think it has come back to that clear communication, doesn't it? So if you're like, I've had the odd experience where you phone a practice and they just say, please hold. Like, and you can appreciate that they're very, they're probably very busy on their end. But going back to that whole, like, the caller is the most important person at that moment in time. Being greeted with the words "please hold" is not a great look. And that's a great reason for someone to hang up and just go to your competitor, isn't it? Claire, have you got anything to add on the hold front?
No, I think we've covered it. Like I say, and if you do leave them on hold and it's longer than what you stated, remember they're on hold and just pop back and say, can I take your number and can I give you a call back? Because people haven't got time to be sitting there waiting for you to finish with the patient who's in front of you or finish doing another call, or so just be aware that people's time is precious.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I like the fact that you're reassuring them that they're, you're not you're reassuring them that you haven't forgotten them, because I think that can be quite a thing. Is you're on hold for ages and you think, well, are they coming back? Like, have they forgotten about me? Have they gone on to lunch? Like, there's all those sorts of things running through your head. No, I love it. Perfect. So that's how you'd hopefully handle the hold situation. If you were asked a question that you didn't necessarily know the answer to, how should you approach that situation? And that can be either of you.
Me or you, Claire?
I'll say the first bit and you can carry on. So you need to tell them what you're doing. So if you need to find out, just to confirm, you don't necessarily have to tell them you don't know what the answer is. Tell them that you want to confirm that what you're saying is correct, and let them know that you're going to just check with your manager or whoever. And then what would you say after that, Robiha? Would you go along with that, or?
So yeah, we all have our own ways of doing it. But personally, when I'm dealing with a patient that's asked me a question I'm not too sure about, then I say, that's a really good question. I actually don't know the answer to that. I just say it as it is. Yeah. And then I say, give me time to find out, and then I will get back to you. So I then take their permission to either jot down their email address or phone number, and then I contact them back.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it.
It could be either way, couldn't it?
Yeah. I think it probably depends on what they're asking you. Like, if it's going to be something like, when's my next appointment? And you're not sure, or can I just confirm my appointment? It's just, that should be hopefully a quick tap in the system and then go back to them. But if it's like, how long is it going to take me to straighten my teeth? That probably isn't something that you can probably help on the reception desk. So it probably requires, a different approach. But no, that's no, I like that approach. I think the key thing here is just not saying I don't know, and then not offering any solution to that. Yeah, definitely, that's perfect. Yeah, excellent. Sort of on a similar note, so the hold and to the kind of answering. What happens if in a situation, and hopefully it would be quite a rare situation, that you have to they have to be transferred to someone else within the business? How should a receptionist deal with that kind of situation? What are some good approaches to that?
So first of all, I would take their name and number in case I press the wrong button and cut them off.
Yes, that is something that happens a lot.
It has happened. It's happened loads of times.
Yeah.
But also let the caller know who you're transferring to, and that they may be waiting for some time if that person's dealing with someone that's sat in front of them, just to let them know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with all of these questions, like you said earlier, it's communicating and tell the person what is happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just keep them informed.
Yeah.
Reassure them what's going on. I guess I guess it's from the caller's perspective is like reassure, because if you have an obvious, like, a process in place or a protocol in place or a way of handling situations, that's probably quite reassuring for the caller. If you're sort of a bit headless chicken and kind of not making much sense, then I guess that's a bit too confusing, and that's a good reason for them to either hang up or not call back again.
Yeah. Some systems, they have phone systems I'm talking about. The caller sometimes gets transferred back to the reception. So although you've transferred the call to someone else, they may have not picked up within those number of rings, and then it gets transferred back to you. So remembering also that it's okay to apologize. You know, if that other person hasn't picked up, apologize and let them know that you're going to pass on the message for them to then be contacted.
Yeah. That's a really good. That's a really good point, because, like you say, like, you know, I don't think callers are expecting you to be like to know everything or get everything sorted in one go. Like being focusing on communication and honesty. I think honesty can be the best policy sometimes, or most. It should be the best policy most of the time. And then sort of going back to that, then Robiha, is if the caller does come back, and this is, you know, we haven't talked about this particular question, but if a call comes back, like, do you know it's been, most of these systems, do you know if it's been transferred back, or is it like a new call again and you've got to do the same process, the same greeting?
Yeah. Perhaps it depends on the size of the practice or the phone system you're using, but usually it may have a different ringtone to a call coming from outside. So you'd be aware that it's a call that you've already received, perhaps, or you can see where it's coming from.
Yeah, sometimes it will appear on the digital screen.
So something that when I was working for my dad a few years ago, something that he told us to do was sort of no matter who or what the phone call was, because, you know, sometimes you get the phone number come up and you can kind of preempt who it's going to be. He always said, just respond in the same way, just in case. Like, don't make assumptions about who's picking up the phone or who's on the other side of the phone, because it could be someone completely different. It might be like the same number bar one digit. So it was always like answering the same call. So I guess that might be something that you could consider inside the practice, is never assume you know who's on the other end.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to say,
get so many calls that the numbers you wouldn't. There might be, unless it was some person that's really alerted that no one wants to answer. Then I think that, you know, that you wouldn't necessarily see that so much. But there might be one that's got alarm bells all over it.
Oh yeah. Don't adjust it if it's a red flag patient.
Yeah.
Keep your approach the same. Perfect. That's brilliant. So that's how you would sort of transfer calls. So this is probably going to be the juiciest question. So this is how should you handle the following question, which is, are you accepting new NHS patients? Now, for any US and Canadian listeners, this will be very similar to, do you accept a certain type of insurance? And we can dig into the response for that particular question, but this is kind of similar. So Claire, obviously you've been doing some, like you mentioned earlier, you've been doing a bit of market research, a bit of secret shopper, should we say, just because we're curious about how, you know, the situation is right now with a lot of receptionists and how they handle phone calls. Tell us a bit about, you know, I guess it's quite a common question, isn't it? That's a very common question. Why is it an interesting question? And then maybe sort of touch on how it's typically handled, but then also the opportunity that question sort of poses you.
So from what I've discovered in the last couple of weeks, which I obviously knew was an issue, is I've run at least 65 practices, and I've had one person who started to tell me that they could offer me private treatment instead. Now, I was ready to be converted. I just say NHS because that's what people in the UK a lot of the time, you know, ask for. And they might not necessarily realise that private treatment isn't that horrendous price that, you know, they think, or they might not even know the difference between private and NHS treatment. So you should assume that you shouldn't assume that people can't afford to have private treatment because they ask for NHS treatment. So not one person offered me, they literally just said, no, sorry, we don't take NHS patients. That was it. Nothing else.
Nothing else. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, haven't you? Like it's just one of those things that it's NHS, and obviously NHS dentistry is one of those things that's for a lot of people is kind of what they grew up with or they're most familiar with, and it doesn't always necessarily mean that they can't afford private treatment, but a lot of practices, either because they haven't, it's not necessarily the receptionist's fault, they just they haven't been told that they can, there's obviously they're making some assumptions, but there's no reason why someone that asked for NHS couldn't be a private patient. So what could people do, or how could practices change that? Like, what could they do to kind of, you're not going to convert every person who asks for NHS, because some people they can't afford, they just genuinely cannot afford private treatment, but there are going to be some that are probably open to it, but just don't know the differences, like you said, or have never been asked to really, or they never thought about it. So what can a receptionist say in that situation to potentially swing them towards private?
So they need to learn how to, or be shown how to put the question back on the patient and find out what the problem is, or what the issue is, or how can we help you. Don't say no straight away, because that's what people hear is the word no. But tell them, find out what the problem is, and then start explaining how you could help those people with that problem. And Robiha, you had a way of saying this the other day. You were talking to me about this, weren't you?
So I was just saying how you'd find out what the person needs, and then you would investigate that further. So rather than just asking the question, getting the answer, and then providing a solution, you do a bit of coaching, really. So you're finding out a lot more about that patient's needs, because it may be that actually they have more than one need, or the one that they've brought to your attention isn't actually the one that really needs looking at. And so by finding out more about them, getting their details, you're then able to put together, or your practice may already have something that they can send out to them. And also letting them know that you have financial plans in place.
Yeah.
So that insurances or whatever it may be that would help them to pay for these treatments, because to hear a ballpark figure can really scare people away, and that makes problems bigger. So rather than treating that problem whilst it was tiny and less expensive, they've now waited a long time until they're in absolute agony to treat something that they could have done months or years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess so. Obviously, you've covered the pricing aspect. So yes, private treatment is typically more than NHS, but not always significantly more. But like those finance plans or treatment plans, make it more affordable. I guess the other thing, typically the luxury or the benefit of a private practice is obviously how quickly you can be seen. So I guess by digging on that problem and maybe stating the fact that you can be seen tomorrow, or a shorter time window potentially, would that be another sort of way to kind of almost convert? Because I guess what we're trying to say is, like, as the receptionist, you don't probably think of yourself as a salesperson, but that's kind of what you are. That being that first point of contact. Is that so? What other I'm waffling here, if I'm honest. What else could a receptionist say to kind of persuade someone to come down the private route?
Well, sometimes it's about the person. It's nothing to do with money, which is like Robiha was just saying. It's coaching, but it's also, if they suddenly take to you and they like you, they're probably going to come to the practice no matter how much it costs. I mean, obviously, yes, some people they just can't afford it, no matter how friendly you are. But just be their friend, just find out, chat to them. If she says, "Oh, my dog's just running," I'll say, "Oh, well, how's the dog? What dog have you got?" I know you haven't, you're really, really busy and you probably haven't got time for this, but it could be the difference between converting that patient to coming into the practice to going somewhere else.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I'm just going to add to that is, you're not always going to convert everyone.
No.
But if you do this, you're going to convert more people than you would if you didn't. So if you were very quick to just dismiss someone talking about asking for NHS patients, then you're never going to get any of them. But if you are, take that time to sort of create a bit of a rapport, that's important, isn't it? Build a rapport, show interest in them as individuals, and then offer to solve their problem. You're going to convert way more people, and not just convert. You're going to, let's face it, you're going to provide them great oral health treatment. Like they're going to really benefit from coming from your practice.
I've got an example actually to tell you. I was doing some mentoring for a course I was helping to develop and run, and I had mentoring with them for the weeks afterwards. They had assignments, and then did the mentoring with them. And we were talking about, she was a receptionist, and I said to her, instead of saying, no, sorry, we're full capacity, we can't take any more NHS patients, I said, just change it round and find out what the problem is, right? So she went and practiced this for a couple of weeks till we spoke again. And she said that a lot of them were denture patients. So a couple of, that her vicinity there was a lot of elderly patients. They come in, and she said she chatted to them and said, they said, have you got can I have an NHS denture, blah, blah, blah. And she said, she changed it and started saying, what's wrong with the denture? So they told her about the denture. And then she said, do you know that we do offer implants now? And she ended up getting about 3 or 4 patients just in that couple of weeks, converting, going for an implant consultation. I think 3 of them all went ahead with treatment.
Amazing.
So it's just that changing it round, finding out what the problem is, and then telling them there is another option.
An alternative that's really good.
No one had ever told her to think of it in that way.
Yeah, just think about all the missed opportunities people have had over the decades because of that, because of how they responded to that question. So I think that might be, that's probably the sort of thing we need to get out there into the wild.
Yeah.
Don't say no. And I think it's the same, and I believe it's the same in the US and Canada. When someone asks, do you take this, are you part of this specific insurance network? And if the receptionist says no, then that again, it's the same situation. They hear no, and they switch off, and they thank you, and they leave the call. Whereas actually, there's actually a few, certain practices can take, say, insurance from different networks, and it's just like there's just other. It's not a straightforward yes or no answer. But if they say no straight away, then it's game over, really. But no, that's brilliant, perfect. Thanks, Claire. Right, I think that just about sums up the session. So just want to ask you both, if there are any extra tips or tricks when it comes to answering phone calls. We've probably covered quite a lot of it, so I don't blame you if you run out.
I would just say, be friendly. Try and chat to everyone as if they're your friend or your family member, and don't, like Robiha said right at the beginning, we're all very, very busy, so we just try and take that breath and have a think about, actually, that is a person on the phone. It's not just work. But it's easy for us to say. It's how it is on the day, and how to practice that, really.
Yeah, definitely. Robiha, anything else to add?
Yeah, I'd like to say that to be able to put yourself into that caller's shoes, relate it back to something that you've experienced yourself. So, for example, you can imagine a time when you've gone into a department store and how you've been treated by the staff. So if you've had a good experience, then put that forward in your own way of dealing with your patients. But if you've had a bad experience, then remember how it felt for you, so that you're not putting that on anyone else. And treat everyone like you would want to be treated yourself, making sure that every contact counts. So we've got fantastic literature in dentistry that would help you to grow your knowledge and to be able to deal with the public, like this podcast, hopefully
Yeah. And we have to remember as well that the receptionists in the front of house, they do a fantastic job, and they're doing, they're doing a million jobs at once. This will just add to their confidence.
Yeah. I think that's key, isn't it? Giving them confidence to answer these phone calls in a productive and a fruitful manner. But no, thank you. Honestly, this is going to be super useful. Can't wait to share it with everyone. If people want to get in touch with the two of you, how can they do that?
So we are about to launch our website, ready for the new year. And it's Patient Boost that have made our website for us, or designed it, I should say. So we will have a few things so you can see what we've done on there as well, and who we've worked with. And just give us a call, contact us on Instagram or their website.
Yeah, so if you visit PracticeSuccess.dental, and that's where you'll find the website, and it's got the Instagram account on there and everything. I think you're Practice Success on Instagram as well, aren't you, Claire and Robiha?
Yes. Yeah,
perfect. So hit them up, and like we discussed at the beginning of the session, between the two of them, they've got a lot of experience in different areas, and you'll be surprised at what they can help you with. So like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing them progress, because they're both from in practice, and they're now sort of stepping out on their own, doing their own thing and helping others. So very exciting time ahead, and I'm looking forward to working with both of you for many years to come.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Perfect. Right, guys, thank you both of you for joining me today, and obviously would love to get you on again for another topic in the future.
And do you want to just say a bit about Patient Boost? Okay.
Yeah, I had actually forgotten that. So obviously Boost. I forgot about to mention what our own company is. So Patient Boost is the dental practice growth consultancy. We're more than just a marketing company. We do get involved in the back end of things. So kind of overlapping with PracticeSuccess a little bit, and obviously that's why we're working together. But it's all very well having a great marketing strategy and getting lots of leads, but if you can't convert those leads, then there's no point, and actually you're going to be wasting money. So if your team can't handle those inquiries from the very first phone call all the way through to someone seeing the TCO, the treatment coordinator, it doesn't matter how much you spend on marketing, you're always going to be sort of filling a leaky bucket. Is a great way of putting it, and obviously that sort of extends to how are you retaining patients as well. So a lot of practices focus on attracting new patients, but you've actually got a lot of untapped revenue, like sitting unengaged patients or patients that are would probably quite happily spend more money on cosmetic dentistry. It's all about that. So it's a more all-encompassing than just a typical marketing agency. So it's a bit of a marketing and business approach. If we can't help you directly, then we know the people that can, and that will be include the lovely ladies at PracticeSuccess.
So that goes on to engaging the team as well. So that's what you're helping to do through Patient Boost indirectly.
Yeah. Indirectly. So it's just realize it's that appreciation for, it's not a case of marketing does its job and then it's over to the practice. It's very much how you've got the whole system has got to work together for it to be effective. And obviously the more effective that your team and the practice are at converting patients, then the more you can invest in marketing and get a greater return on investment. So it's a nice big flywheel, as we like to call it. Awesome.
Great.
Right, guys,
Thank you.
Brilliant session, and I will talk to you very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.